Hello, everyone. Did you know that the busiest students are often the ones that are the most unsuccessful college applicants? Yes, welcome, everyone. I'm here today to lift the curtain and spend some time with you speaking again about college admissions, about education, high school, everything that you as a student might be going through, or you as a parent, if you're here as a parent, might be worried about. There's something I need to warn you. And now that we are stepping into the season of college applications again, maybe you're sitting down and thinking, I need to fill in the Common App. There are 10 activities. What am I supposed to do? I have 2 pages long resume and I have done so many things. Well, I would like to tell you how admissions officers evaluate your application, how they think about your profile, and what they're actually looking for. So, when we talk about realities of education and college admissions, one thing I have seen to be for sure an element of surprise. We did so much. Why did no school accept us? Well, let's backtrack a little bit. So, when the college admissions officers look at your application, what are they really thinking? They're looking for something I call a signal. What is this pile of things that you're saying you have done and you have listed your hourly involvement and your yearly involvement? What is the signal that you're ultimately sending to them? This is a perception game, okay? This is not so much about, oh, there's so much merit, and the student has done tennis, and the student has done robotics, and the student has done speech and debate. How were they able to do it all in one Saturday? Okay. How were they able to go and take the SAT 5 times? This is not how they're thinking. No admissions officer ever said, wow, the student has been so busy. Let's just get them in. They will be the busy working bee. That's not how they think. In fact, when they look at your profile, they're looking to see the entire picture. They're evaluating you in a most cohesive way. They're looking for that signal that tells them that you were actually involved in something that was meaningful to you. Where did you dedicate most of your time? Which activity showcases the deepest impact and the deepest involvement? Ultimately, they really want to make sure that you had skin in the game. Or did you just participate in robotics because somebody told you that if you want to apply for engineering major, you need to have robotics on your resume? Or the questions that they're asking you about leadership or impact or your community, are you trying to look at your resume and you're somehow trying to think, oh, well, for me to show that I have a community involvement, then let me show them that I also have 40 hours of volunteering. So that should be enough community involvement, isn't it? That is not how you're supposed to be thinking. Yes, you definitely need to be connecting your activities to your essays, but they need to be portrayal of your personality and who you truly are. So again, when you approach your activities list, do not go blow by blow as a check boxes on a resume. And if you have done the debate and the robotics and the volunteering and the student government and sports, and you did tennis for 2 years and then you dropped because you found out, okay, now I don't have enough time, so I can have, 5 APs in my junior year. Well, that is not going to be helpful because that is not how applications at the end of the day are evaluated. So when you look at your Common App, ask yourself, am I showcasing depth? Okay, what does depth really mean? It just means that you were involved in something because you really cared. It really mattered to you. Why were you involved? Why did this matter to you? How many of you actually go and do the soup kitchen on the weekend only because your high school requires you to have 40 hours of volunteering so you can graduate? Okay, if that is the case, then ask yourself a question. What is the depth here? So will you list the volunteering as the number one thing or number two just to showcase that you have been good to your community? I wouldn't, okay? The next thing is, are you showcasing initiative? What does initiative really mean? Being told without earning the grade, without the requirement from the school, this made a difference to you because you really didn't mind waking up in the morning, Saturday and Sunday when everybody else was sleeping, so you can go and make a difference in your community. That is taking an initiative. Or you created a project on your own without somebody telling you this will really matter for your college applications. Or you sincerely, I had a student who baked cookies and distributed them to the hospitals, and she really took charge of what will matter to the people next door because they're 70 and 80-year-old husband and wife who do not know how to use a cell phone and how to FaceTime with their children, and their children are really far away. Their son is deployed and they don't know how to send messages. They don't know how to be part of social media so they can see what's happening in the world, and they're kind of disconnected from society. So yes, that is not a volunteer hour that somebody is going to sign on the dotted line and it will count for you toward graduation. That is something you do because you genuinely care. And that is taking initiative to be and do something that is not going to give you immediate accolades. All right. And then impact. What does it really mean to have an impact in anything that you're involved? Did you step away from just what really matters to you and how this is improving you? Or did you really think that that is going to create a ripple effect and somebody is going to learn something from you and they will also teach it back to somebody else? That is the impact actually that colleges are looking for, because the education that they're giving you and that you're paying for at the end, it is just going to constitute a nice frame and something you can hang on the wall. So is it the frame that's going to go and do an impact? Are you walking around with the degree and the university that, of course, you could probably wear a t-shirt all around town explaining where you went to school and just kind of demonstrating that. But are you representing the institution with your personal qualities? This is what they're looking for. And at the end of the day, they're trying to create a community that is like-minded in their idea of impact. Very different and very diverse in character and personality and talents, but very much alike in the desire to make an impact. And that is what the beauty of this process and the selection of the class for each school year is. The impact that these people are going to make, and each one of them brings in a drop of their talent, and the drop by drop they create a ripple effect. And this is what they really ultimately are looking for when they're reading your application. So do not submit a resume that just has check boxes. Okay, so the admissions officers need to clearly see what matters to you, what kind of personality you have, and what is your potential. Because again, the facilities in terms of professorship and faculty and libraries and clubs and everything that they have should be used by people who can make the best use of it. And that's the reason why they're looking. That is what fit really means. So when you're looking for a fit, do you ask yourself a question, what fit really means? How do I fit in this environment? And how will I make the best out of the research opportunities that maybe the college is offering? So some schools really have much of a hands-on activities, and some schools are more research universities. That should really matter to you a lot more than maybe thinking about the location and is it an urban or suburban campus and stuff like that. So again, when you evaluate fit, you must be thinking, what are they looking for? Am I demonstrating depth? Am I demonstrating impact? So I have seen families sometimes fall into the activities trap, and they somehow falsely believe that it is just better to do a lot of activities. And my student, he had the robotics and he had the speech and debate, and he also has all colors of the rainbow on from his karate, black belt, and all that good stuff. And that makes him a very, very interesting person. And I bet he is an interesting person, but that is not the point here. The point here is that you have to create a cohesive profile, because it is not about you judging your child. it is not about, the student. If you're a student watching this, it is not about how you feel and what you think about yourself, but how you come across. The perception here is what really matters, because you're being evaluated. And this is where the feedback of a coach or somebody who knows you well, a counselor, a well-wisher, someone who is able to give it to you straight up and tell you, how do you come across, what should stay, what needs to go, and what really is in the best interest of your application to mention versus what you really think that it should be mentioned. And I've seen this, and every year I think, okay, nothing can surprise me, but I have to tell you, in 20 years or so, I still, get these interesting situations. And I understand where the student is so attracted, so attached to, the K-pop music that they listen to, and how they learned a new language because of it, and how they made new friendships. And this is all wonderful. It is really, there's no denying that this experience cannot be in any ways undermined. But is that really the best thing that can showcase you on your college application? Just think about that. Or is it something that can be introduced as a personality nuance, but not as your main streak, your main quality? So again, when you're describing yourself, when you're putting this down on the application, find the impact. And then again, think about how the admissions officers are looking at your application. How are they evaluating the signal that you're sending? And, think about how they're looking for interesting individuals. But again, go back to what I mentioned earlier. The question they ask is, why did you do what you did? And do you have an answer to the why for yourself? Was it because you were simply doing it with your friend and you were trying to save the friendships that you had from the club? Or is it because, sometimes I see students who are genuinely torn between the speech and debate and the robotics. And at the end, somebody will come and tell them, well, do robotics because you're going for engineering. And if you declare engineering, then you have got to have robotics on your transcript, on your application. And that is definitely not the right advice, because again, what this is going to now create is a very similar profile to everybody else who has been advised the same thing, or who logically thinks that, oh, engineering equals robotics makes me a better candidate, I'll be expected to bring robotics to the table. And it's not like that. I get also asked very often, what are the admissions officers looking for? Well, I mean, it doesn't really work like that, right? Yes, they do have an agenda. Yes, they do have certain class that they're trying to construct. Putting everything on your application can actually weaken your application, is because there's no cohesiveness. There's no why behind what you have done. There's no strong reasoning. It just does not signal that this is an individual who had the depth and they really know what they did and why they did it. There was no strong why behind it. They were just cornucopia of activities that were just, from beginning until the end, and they were mentioned. So, of course, everyone is an individual. There are many, the process is highly personalized. There are a lot of moving parts that go into this, but I just want to caution you from having that, a long list of activities that at the end of the day does not display the proper picture, and it does not tell the entire story. So when you put everything down at the end, when you start gathering all of the facts and your entire life, blow by blow, bit by bit, from 8th grade until now, you need to know what kind of questions to ask yourself so you can construct your application accordingly. This is not about padding your resume. This is not about not being genuine. This is about taking what really matters and making that the central picture of your application. So again, ask yourself, at the end of the day, when I'm portraying myself, am I showing that I have led? Am I showing that I have built? Am I showing that I have created? And what was the impact? Whose life did I touch? And this is not about obviously saving countries, this is not that. I gave you an example of a student who simply went next door, and, she was involved with this husband and wife who were really elderly, and they needed help with navigating social media so they can actually be informed in what's happening, and, be part of their children's lives who they for whatever reason they got the phone and they couldn't, set it up for them, or whatever might have happened. So again, participating in activities on a surface level will not be beneficial. Ask yourself these questions, and then your participation will actually look genuine and not manufactured. So avoid the problem, avoid the trap, the activity trap, and then think and ask intelligent questions so you can understand when you're building a profile how you need to position yourself. And that's exactly, if you're hearing the word positioning, that is what positioning really means, okay? And sometimes some of these words could just feel like they're just meaningless vocabulary words that somebody is just using to advertise themselves. But at the end of the day, there is some truth to that. And look for someone who could probably give you feedback and tell you how you come across. I had a student who was unbelievably genuine, very much involved in the community, very good friend, who had this experience where her friend once had a very emotional situation where, my student just didn't know what to do at the moment. And she called her dad and asked for help. And she said, okay, this might look like a serious situation that I need an adult to intervene. And she did it out of genuine care, and very sincerely, she wanted to help and save her friend. But when she started describing that in her essay, it just did not come out right. It came out as she was judgmental, and the vocabulary words that she used, or maybe just the lack of maturity or the inability to express herself, gave that essay a completely different shade. And when I was reading it, I had to advise her to start all over again. Maybe we had to, reevaluate if this was the right story to tell. First of all, we at the end of the day did tell that, but again, we rewrote that multiple times so she can sit down and reflect on the experience, and it brought her to the understanding of herself. Also, there was some maturity there that kicked in. This process is a long process. That's why I never believe if somebody tells you they wrote their essay at the last minute and they went and they succeeded to get accepted into an Ivy League school. Okay, this is a process that will require you some time and some reflection. And especially, again, when it comes to not falling into the activities trap. And if you're a student who is not yet about to approach the applications and writing the essays, etc., if you're just starting this process, and if you're wondering, it looks like I'm doing something wrong because I'm always exhausted, I never have time, I'm always in a rush, I feel the burnout, but at the end of the day, I'm afraid of stopping because I see everybody else is in this mad rush under the sun to accumulate these 2-3 page resumes, and you're like having that severe FOMO. No, stop and think. You're an individual. This is not what matters. There's a way to tell your story, and you surely have a story. You just cannot do what everybody else is doing. So yes, the busiest student often has the most disappointing results, precisely because they did not have that coherent story that showcased depth, involvement, leadership, impact, potential, everything that they're being evaluated on. So again, I hope you do not fall into the activity trap.